I want to talk about a video I've just watched. It's very disturbing, and it's unfortunately it's not unique. So although the incident happened 2 years ago, I think it's still relevant. Basically, it's from Chicago. It's obviously winter time, snow on the ground, and there's a gang that are beating up a young Asian man. I don't know whether he's Chinese, or I think he's Chinese, but the gang, I don't know what their background is because they're all wearing hoods and so on. Although I don't believe it's a racial thing, and I don't think it should be. There was a news report afterwards, and apparently 6 of the suspects were arrested. I hope they get put away for a very long time. I'll put a link to this. One reason that they got caught because the community, I'm pleased to say, handed over a lot of this footage to the police because the jackasses who done it promoted it online. And that's the thing about criminals, they're too stupid to realise that they're implicating themselves. Anyway, I'm pleased that they did because it was used as evidence against them. Now, the story goes that this young man had been involved in a fight and this was revenge. I think that's the background. But whatever the context, 7-on-1 is the most pussy-assed, pathetic, cowardly, disgusting, despicable thing to do. 7 guys beating up 1 guy. It's not that he's weak, it's that if he tried to fight back it would make things worse. It's hard to watch that. It really is, and it's not unique. I've seen other examples. I mentioned the 27-on-3 gang in Boston. That was 27 Asian guys on that occasion. So that's why I say it shouldn't be a racial issue, because the truth is there's cowardly scumbags in every ethnic group. I've personally had, not as bad as that, but I've had problems with white gangs who have targeted me. Now, it wasn't as bad as that, but I've got nothing but hatred for all gangs, because all gangs are cowards, all gangs behave like this, and it's just, there are no adjectives to describe what I really think of guys like this. I've mentioned that I don't like the idea of vigilantism in prison, but this is one case I would make an exception. I really hope some seriously bad karma happens to each and every single one of these little bitches, because they think they're big men doing that. They're worthless cards. Every single one of them is a worthless little bitch that needs to be terrorized to his face. I'm sorry, but I really have very strong views on this. I believe it would be morally justified for them to be beaten to a bloody pulp, because I don't believe that simply telling them that they're wrong and so on is good enough for people like that. I believe the only way that people like this change is to have some of their own medicine. If that means revenge, then maybe that's what it means. I'm not suggesting it should be 7-on-1 on them, but what it should be is one individual who is stronger than them to beat them to a bloody pulp individually. I hate them. I don't know them, but I don't need to know them because I know exactly what sort of guys they are. They're not men at all. Real men are men who train in martial arts and get into a ring. Real men are men who risk their lives in a war zone. Real men are men who help other human beings as aid workers and doctors in war zones. Real men are men who have compassion and stand by their values. Gang members are not men. They're nothing but worthless criminal scum. And the fact that it takes 7 of them to beat up 1 guy shows what worthless criminal scum they are. When I see shit like this, I don't believe that all people are equal. Because if all people are equal, all people would hold the same standards, or all people would be... But what I hate just as much as gangs and people who act like this is those who make excuses for them, those who try to use all sorts of excuses, like, oh, they're from a broken home, or they're whatever. As far as I'm concerned, the liberal attitude to this sort of thing is part of the problem. There can be no excuses for this. And the only morally justified approach is a very long time behind bars for each of the scum involved. I'd say give them 5 years each, or at least long enough for them to, because this was a prolonged attack on an individual. It was, and if they're prepared to do that to one guy, you know, they could do anything in a gang. So yeah, I'd say about 5 years each. And those of you think that sounds harsh, consider what they've done. Consider the sort of, think of what they put the victim through. I mean, I've been a victim of an assault by an individual, and that's a very unpleasant experience. Now, thinking about prolonged assault by a group of 7 individuals. And by the way, some people are pointing out it's the US. This happens in Britain as well. Vermin exist everywhere. And the world would be a better place if these people were dead. I'm not advocating the death penalty. I'm opposed to the death penalty. But I'm just saying that I don't think that, you know, very often, at least in the UK, when scum like this appear before a magistrate, the magistrate says, sort of states the obvious, like, oh, you put your victim through terror and so on. The problem is criminal vermin don't listen to that sort of language. They don't care. They don't have a conscience. So the only way they can learn is by getting some of their own medicine. So I'm not exactly advocating vigilanteism, but I wouldn't care if it happened to them. And I do think it may be the only way. There are those who say, oh, send them to prison for a long time, it brutalises them. But they're brutal to begin with. They're scum to begin with. So it's, you know, you can't make them much worse than that. You can't get much lower than attacking an individual. As far as I'm concerned, they're absolute... Well, I won't throw out the sort of adjectives that I'm thinking about, but put it this way, I hate them. I hate them with every fibre of my being. And I would dearly, dearly love, I'm not just saying this for bravado, I swear to God I'm being 100% serious now. I would love 1 minute with any one of those guys. I'm not bigging myself up, I couldn't take on all 7. One of them, give me 1 minute. Please, please, give me 1 minute. And from what I've seen, all gangs behave like this. There's no gang that has any sort of moral code. So I strongly support the police and the government in terms of hardline measures. And those who question that, I would ask you, where's your moral compass? How can you justify making excuses or calling for leniency in cases like this? Guys like this don't need leniency. They need an absolute hammer blow of justice in their face. That means, for me, a long custodial sentence. Also, they should be forced to apologise to the victim. And incidentally, I hope the victim recovers. If he's involved in any gangs himself, then he should get out of it, and I don't know if he is. I don't know what the background is. Some people said he was involved in a fight with one of them, but whatever. I hope he's okay. I hope he's moved on from it. And he shouldn't feel any humiliation from that. There's no shame in being beaten up by a gang because you're only human. So, but you know, if people say, oh, he's a weak victim, that's a little bit patronising. Most people couldn't take on a gang, even though it is a gang of worthless cards. 7 on 1, even though the 7 are cards, it's still strength in numbers. But my line of thinking is anyone who does that, it doesn't matter if you're black, white or Asian, if you get involved in a gang to attack an individual, you're worth less than dog shit as far as I'm concerned. And you know, I don't apologise for the hated language here. I feel very, very strongly about this. Because I have had personal experience of gangs. Not quite what this guy went through, but I have had some pretty unpleasant experiences. And I hate them. And it isn't just males, you get girl gangs as well who terrorise people. So it isn't just male gangs, although it predominantly is. But all gangs, in my opinion, are scum. If you are a gang member, you may think you're a big man, but mark my words, you will have a bad life. You will have a bad life. You may think that strutting around with other guys in that way, targeting people in that way, may make you feel good, may make you feel like a gangster, yeah. You may scare people, you may terrorize people. But know this, know everybody hates you. And know that you will have a bad life. And when you're crying in your prison cell, like a little bitch, realize that you will have no one to blame but yourself. Realize that. You've destroyed your family, you've destroyed your own life, and you've got no one to blame but yourself. Why? Because of the decision you made to be a worthless scumbag by that sort of action. I hate them. It's as simple as that.